Hi everyone, it's Carrie, aka Nerdy Girl Crates, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today is Wednesday, but instead of covering a Wednesday Rewind, I wanted to talk about a topic that's been on my mind for some time now. If you follow me on Twitter recently, you saw me kind of ranting a little bit about this, but it's something I felt like I should do a video on. Now, I wanted to discuss why I personally do not cover new DC or Marvel comics on my channel. Now, I want to make it clear, I'm not here to tell you not to buy Marvel or DC comics. This is my personal choice, and I'm not here to chastise anybody or encourage people to do something they don't want to do. Again, it's my choice. And I just wanted to give some reasons on why I got turned off from new Marvel and DC and why I don't buy as many as I used to. I used to have a pull list at my comic book store when I was living in Florida that would cost me about $50 or $60 because there were so many titles I loved to read from both Marvel and DC. But over time, it shrunk. And to the point, I canceled my pull list. And then when I moved out of Florida, I went back to the comic store up here and I didn't see anything current from the big two that intrigued me. And I think it's got to do with a lot of different reasons. Some of these reasons you've heard on the internet already, on YouTube, all through social media. It's a common complaints, and there's some other stuff I wanted to throw in that maybe you haven't heard too much about. For me, it started with like the introduction of the all new, all different Marvel, the new 52. And it started to just go downhill for me from there. I felt like my number one reason would be the lack of original ideas. And what I mean by the lack of original ideas is Marvel and now even DC have tend to rehash storylines that were huge hits, some of them classics, in order to get a fast buck. It be anything from a Crisis storyline, rebranded it as a Future State, Clone Saga, to even Phoenix Saga. You know what I'm talking about. How many times do we have to travel into the multiverse? You know, how many times does certain mainstream characters have to die to get brought back? That's my first problem. I feel like nobody who's currently working at the big two, or maybe it could be editing or publishers, I'm not here to make that decision, but they don't want to take creative chances anymore. And it's not just with storylines. The other thing they've been doing lately is swapping mantles around like it's a hot potato game. I mean, it's like every big name superhero has passed their mantle on to somebody else, even if it's been for a short time, or they've had multiple versions of themselves. I mean, how many Spider-Man do we have at this moment? I've lost count. And I'm not even counting what's probably exists in the multiverse. I mean, they even just brought back Ben Reilly, from what I understand. I mean, you've had Captain America Steve Rogers, who's the original, but then you've had Bucky as Cap, which I didn't mind that story because I kind of felt it wasn't going to be a permanent solution. But then you had Falcon, Sam Wilson as Cap, and now they're doing it in the MCU, which to me makes no sense. And I can get into that in another video where I could talk about my thoughts on the MCU. You've had females replacing male characters from Riri Williams, who you know how I feel about if you've watched this channel. I'm not a very big fan of Riri. You've also had Shuri standing in for Black Panther, which is probably going to also happen in the MCU. You've had Miss Marvel become Captain Marvel, and I'm talking about Carol Danvers, and in turn you've had then Kamala become Miss Marvel, even though her powers are nothing like the other Miss Marvel. You've had Miles Morales from the Ultimates universe, now in the present universe, Spider-Gwen, Silk. I mean, I'm losing like count of how many swaps, and now it's happening in DC. You've got Jonathan Kent, who is the son of Clark Kent. He is now Superman. And there's already rumors going around that they're going to kill off Superman Clark Kent again, but this time to have Jonathan Kent as the main Superman, or I think at least if they can still use the name, because there's another situation going on with that. Speaking of Jonathan Kent, the other thing that I kind of am getting annoyed with when it comes to lack of original ideas, Marvel and DC has been prioritizing gender, race, and sexuality over plot. And I kind of feel like every month DC announces a new character as being bisexual, and they treat it every time they do that as it's like the first time ever. And you're just kind of like bored with it. And you're kind of like, okay, it's gotten to the point now where I'm just looking to see who are they going to make bisexual next. And then you have like, over in Marvel, we've made Iceman gay. And since they've done that, have you seen Iceman much? I don't even think. I think he showed up at that Met Gala thing, and I didn't even bother reading that. It's it's kind of like, I want them to take more chances, not just on storylines, but also on characters, new original characters. Because I keep hearing this excuse from them that you can't sell a brand new character to the audience without some type of name recognition, like Superman, like Captain America, like Spider-Man. And I call BS on that, because I want to take you back to the 90s. And there was a guy named Todd McFarlane who started a company called Image, and he made bank on a brand new character named Spawn, who really wasn't like taking the mantle from somebody else. He was new, he was original, he had his own origin story. He was African American, or if that's the proper term, I don't know anymore, who was a tragic figure, but it sold so much money, and it's once again hitting big in the markets with his new Spawn universe. So I call BS, because I'm kind of tired of hearing about, oh, well, we can't sell these characters. And then if they do try to make something new, the characters that they make, for example, I'm going to use from Marvel, Swordmaster. Now, he sounds interesting because this is a kid in China who finds a sword that grants him magical powers. He starts teaming up with other Chinese heroes to save the day. He even crosses paths with Doctor Strange and Shang-Chi, or Shang-Chi, whatever it is now. But when you see the character, he's drawn like the typical trope of an anime character. The overlarge sword like Cloud and Ichigo from Bleach, Berserk. You look at him and he looks like every other anime character. There's nothing about him that kind of makes him like stand out other than, oh look, copying manga. Then you had some other characters who did have some interesting concepts, but kind of fell to the wayside. Like you had in Agents of Atlas a few characters like Luna Snow, Arrow, and see, I'm trying to remember the other ones. That's how well they promoted them. But they were thrown in a group with Silk and Amadeus Cho Hulk, who is now called Brawn, which is also a dumb name, by the way. But you could have really capitalized on this. I mean, if you were trying to get a certain audience, Luna Snow herself could have been something you could have developed a great storyline on, but didn't. And instead you just kept going, look, she's a K-pop star. I'm like, great, I don't care what's her story, who's her villain. And there was none, except for whoever the team was fighting. She didn't have her own adventures. She didn't have her own rogue gallery. And it was kind of like, well, you dropped the ball there. Another thing, speaking of swapping mantles and stuff like that, is for a group of people at this company who go on about wanting to be progressive and have more diversity and more representation, they do enforce a lot of stereotypes. For example, recently they decided to get rid of Danny Rand as Iron Fist. And they've introduced a new character, and it's obvious he's going to be Asian, because in their logic, only an Asian guy can do martial arts. Well, you just kind of stripped Danny Rand of what made him unique. Iron Fist was that fish out of water story. And yes, this was created in the 70s, but it was a person who was thrown into a situation where it wasn't his culture, it wasn't something he knew about. He was a stranger in a strange world with a belief system he probably never heard of or participated in, and a form of fighting he was also never exposed to until now. So you had this guy who was trying to prove himself amongst other people who grew up in this world, that he was just as good as they could be. He had a hard time being accepted because he was an outsider. He had to prove harder to everyone that he could develop his skills because he wasn't involved in it as long as most people. And he overcame those obstacles and gained the power of the Iron Fist. Where are you going to go with this new character? I mean, I will wait and see what the story is, but how are you going to make him stand out from Danny Rand? Are you just going to be like, he's bisexual? I don't know. I know it's not funny, but it's kind of like this mentality of what they think is creating diversity is actually doing, in my opinion, the opposite of what diversity is. As I like to say, and you've seen me say this on Twitter, there's no diversity in your diversity. You have cookie cutter ideas for each group of what you think they should be. For example, strong, empowered women characters, mostly, and I say mostly because I had a Twitter war over this when I was giving examples, gender fluid look, short hair, very flat chested, probably no makeup, and hates men. Yes, hates men. You also have characters like American Chavez, who is also part of the LGBT. Yes, she has the long hair and she has much more of a feminine outfit, but her personality is just completely like, I hate it. I don't like her attitude, the way she talks to people and everything. Everybody's beneath her, and it's not even like in a cool way, like, deep down there's like that soft spot. No, it's just she's completely unlikable. Same with Riri Williams. And that's the other thing I want to talk about. Why is it when you depict African American women, they all have to have like the shaved side hair with one side long and never smile? They have that like snarky smirk on their face. This is what I'm talking about, stereotypes. And it's same thing with LGBT characters. For some reason, most of the time, male gay characters can never be masculine. Okay? Why? And what is it with when you're doing certain races? I feel like every Asian guy that's not a martial artist has to look like a K-pop star with like the colored hair and like the very boyish features. And it's kind of like all I see is like these cookie cutter images. There's no diversity in your diversity, Marvel and DC. Everybody's got to be like fit into this mold you've created. And then you've created these walls for each of these groups that only these groups can do this, and only these groups can do that, and only these groups can do this. And it's the opposite of creating unity, okay? You're not creating representation and diversity. You're creating borders. You're enforcing stereotypes. Now, outside of the storylines, the characters, another issue I have is there's no respect for legacy. I feel like every time DC and Marvel fail, they just retcon everything. Issue number 1 means nothing anymore, okay? I think a new issue number 1 comes out every so many months in Marvel and DC, so it's lost its importance, It used to be number 1 was actually the very first issue of, and it would just continue on there. But now it's like, okay, we're going to just retcon everything again and start at number 1. And that's the other thing. We're always retconning. That's the only way you seem to think you could fix your mistakes. And instead of fixing your mistakes, you just keep making more. You retcon beloved characters. I mean, I am so sick and tired of seeing Batman, Captain America, and Iron Man walking around feeling guilty because they're white, male, and straight. Why? And then characters people love are put to the back shelf because they don't fit into your cookie molds. There is such a lack of continuity, too, because of these retcons. I mean, if something doesn't work, you kind of change the story. Or to change that character's origin. It's... I'll give an example. Like, recently I read about Bane. Bane used to be this guy who was addicted to, like, this steroid, and he was the one who broke Batman's back, and, you know, he was just a menace and evil. Villains can't be evil anymore in DC and Marvel. They all have to have a sob story. I mean, right now you've got freaking Loki even running around in the MCU as like an anti-hero. He's trying to save everybody. What happened to the Loki who was always trying to kill Thor? Well, you have Bane, who now, instead of being this all-out evil guy, they've retconned it that he's programmed it like it. They completely stole both the Weapon X storyline and the Winter Soldier storyline to do this. Because he also has a clone that's a daughter, and I'm sorry, this goes back to what I was saying earlier on about reusing old storylines. It's stupid. I want some of my villains to be at least evil. I mean, I don't want everybody to have a sob story. I don't want them to seem more sympathetic than the hero. I don't want all this retconning every time you're freaking messing up. If you have to keep retconning, you need to stop and say, okay, maybe there's a problem in the writers department. Maybe we need to look at editing. Maybe we need to look at like the storyboard and say, maybe this is not the direction to go in. Instead of just kindly, we're just going to retcon and retcon and retcon. No, stop retconning. The other issue that's completely turned me off from following as much DC and Marvel as I used to is the creators and talent that they currently employ now. And I say creators and talent very loosely because I don't think most of them are very talented or creative at all. My biggest problem with them is they are given free rein to attack, slam, slander, and make fun of the fan base that has supported DC and Marvel forever. I'm talking about the people who used to go to the Comic-Cons, not to get the celebrities' autograph from the MCU, but to go there to comic book hunt, to meet their favorite artists, to meet their favorite writers. The ones who invest in the back issues, the ones who go and get their books graded, the ones who like know everything about the character, that they're like a walking encyclopedia. The ones who respect the legacy, the ones who put the most money into the big two. These are the ones who are always getting attacked. Okay? I'm not going to say there's not some assholes out there who go too far when it comes to the creators. I'm not going to say everybody's perfect on one side. No. I'm not. But when you have people saying, I don't like the direction you're heading, or I don't like this choice you made for this character, or this is not something this character would ever do if you actually followed their history. And then you're turning around on Twitter, calling them names, and not just any names, like really seriously bad names that I don't want to repeat because I could probably get something with YouTube, like a strike or something stupid, because I've seen people get in trouble for saying this word on YouTube. But you know what I'm talking about, the World War II bad guy. Other names like the the phobes, the isms. It's like... They enjoy it too. I watch them. They go on and on, back and forth with people. It's not just in the comic book industry either. I know you're going to point out also in movies and television, yes. But I'm discussing right now Marvel and DC. They go back and forth. I have been put on blockchains and I have not even interacted with most of these people. Alright? I have an ongoing joke going with Doc from Comics Aficionado about all the blocks I have with people I have never interacted with. Just because I might follow somebody or somebody might follow me that they had like a Twitter battle with. I mean, they block all these people and then they think they're like being heroic about it. It's like, oh, look at me. I've blocked that asshole. I don't need to deal with him anymore. And I'm going to block everybody who follows him and everybody who follows them and so on and so forth. I'm just going to shut out the entire fan base. And the refusal to listen to criticism. Okay, some people might go about it the wrong way when they're trying to deliver their point. But people, especially customers, because that's what we are, have a right to criticize things. To go on there and call these people man babies and cry those fanboy tears because you didn't like my story, that's not a good company policy. And I get it. Some of these people are contracted. They're not exactly full-time, long-term employees of Marvel or DC. But they still represent Marvel and DC to a point. And it shocks me how Marvel and DC just kind of like go, okay, do whatever you want. You're attacking the fan base because you've convinced yourself anybody who doesn't like your work is automatically wrong. And that's not accurate. Okay? It's more, people should be able to give input. People should be able to have opinions without being like sent to the chopping block. People should be able to have a discussion about things they don't like with the person who might express things differently. There should be customer input. But I feel like Marvel and DC, they don't want to do that anymore. I mean, I've seen so many fights on Twitter between artists, and I again say that loosely, and writers with people who are just like, well, I don't like this. I really don't. Or, okay, maybe they get a little harsh, but still, if they get a little harsh, you should still be the better person in the conversation. You'd be like, well, I apologize if you don't like it, but, this is the direction we're going, and maybe give it a chance. No, nobody even tries to talk like that anymore. Everybody's just like attack mode, and it's getting on my nerves. It's like, I don't even care if Tom Taylor might end up being the best writer in the world. The fact that he sits there and like laughs at people and puts them in blockchains, I don't even want to read his work. He blocked me. I've never talked to him. Never. And speaking of that, the other thing that's turned me off is not just the creators and talent. Again, I say that very loosely. But it's also these culture wars. They get this group of, I don't even know if I can call them fans, but these Twitter mob of people who demand all these changes in comics and movies and television and so forth and so on. These people who don't really invest much in the products have main say over everything, and it's outrageous. It's mind-boggling. I don't know why these Twitter mob idiots get catered to over people who have actually invested and cared about these characters for years. And it's fan versus fan. Now, here's the thing I'm going to say about this fan versus fan war. Both sides get insane when they're fighting with one another. Okay? Both. Some say things that I would not want to see on there. Okay? They jump in. They get pulled into this whole, name-calling battle royale. Then there's doxing and other stuff. And it's just kind of like, stop. I found myself getting pulled in, okay? I'm not gonna lie. But it gets to a point where it's like, okay, this is obviously not going anywhere because you don't want to hear my side of it, so I am just gonna walk away now and mute you. I've had people follow me on Twitter just to jump in to try to antagonize a war, and I've had to mute them. And I've seen some of my followers have to jump in and say stuff back to this person because all they're trying to do is just push a button to set off the warhead. The missile is off. That's what they want. They want explosions all the time. And it's just really? And they're the first ones then, when you get really upset and angry, who turn around and say, but it's just a fictional character. Okay, it's just a fictional character. So then why are you out here playing gatekeeper, looking to battle with all these people who are upset over changes that have been made to their beloved characters they don't like? Why are you trolling through everybody's Twitter feed, waiting for that one mark, and then you're gonna pounce? It's crazy. I mean, it's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then they pull politics into it. And then again, I blame this on the Twitter mob and these so-called creators and artists and Marvel and DC, because now everything's politics. And I don't understand why it has to be politics. They've drawn a line and said, okay, if you're on this side, you're one of us. But if you're on this side, you are the enemy and need to be destroyed. It's ridiculous. Okay? It shouldn't matter what anybody's political belief is, religious belief, what their sexuality is, what their race is, what their gender is. None of that should freaking matter. And social media is the battleground for this crap. I mean, it gets nasty at times. I'm sitting there hitting report on some people because it's just like, they see everybody in boxes, in, again, the cookie cutter little thing. If you're X, Y, and Z, you must be all of this. There is no deviation. There is no variety. You are just this. And it's stupid, and I hate the fact that the stuff I love has become the battleground for it. I can't. Take it away. I don't even care about politics anymore because it's all I hear about no matter where I go. And I'm tired of it. I don't care what you vote for. I don't care who you date. I don't care what your race is, what your gender is. All I want to do is have fun and talk about comic books. Now, I'll tell you this. Since I started my journey into manga, because of the trauma from comic books, when I did my review on One Piece, I really thought like I was going to get bashed into oblivion. But surprisingly, no. A lot of these One Piece and manga fans realized that I was new to reading it. So they decided to share their experience and give me some advice on when it comes to manga and the differences between comics. The biggest thing with One Piece was I only read volume 1. And like I said, this was one of the very first few manga I did a review on. And the One Piece fans were like, look, yeah, volume 1 is just the entry point. It is not where the story really, really gets going. You need to read on and you will see that it gets better. There was no, I hate you, you're this, you're that, and attacking me left and right. I appreciated the input. I actually now, when I review manga, make sure I read more than one volume because it's true. Volume 1 is more like the introduction. It's not the full plot. It's not what's the main arc. And I have been reading One Piece. I've gotten through almost the whole entire East Blue arc, and I'm going into the next one. And I will be doing a follow-up review on it, and I will tell you, my opinion has changed on One Piece. But again, it's the way they discussed it with me. It wasn't like, damn you, I'm going to report your video, I'm going to give you 1,000 down likes. No, the only person who gave me the down likes was the same troll who's always following me on my Twitter looking for people to attack. Only one. And it wasn't even somebody, I don't even think he reads manga. Or she, whatever their pronouns are. And I kind of miss that in comic books. I remember going to the comic book conventions and being able to sit with a whole group of people from all different types of backgrounds, all different religious affiliations, and just talking about our favorite characters. There was no like checklist asking me if I was this, and that. And if I didn't match up with what they liked, I had to go. Okay? We would just sit there. I mean, I remember sitting there with a conservative Christian group and also an LGBT group, and we were all talking about Batman. Nobody cared what anybody's background was. We were just sitting there talking about what we liked about Batman. I don't think you could do that anymore with comics. And it's like this culture war, it's killing things. It's even worse than the creators because these creators, they fall in with this whole culture war. They antagonize it. They keep pushing it and they feed off of it just as much as the trolls in my Twitter feed. And it's depressing. I wanted to get back to where I don't care who you are and where you came from. Let's talk Batman. Okay? You're a nice person. That's all that matters. You like comic books? That's all that matters. Okay? We might not like the same characters, but that's fine. Let's have a discussion on why you like this one and why I don't like that one. Why you like this storyline and why I didn't. You know, what happened to that? It's kind of refreshing to see in manga more people seem to be open to conversation. But it's becoming less and less in DC and Marvel circles. And it's depressing. I hate how everybody's at everybody's throats all the time, and there's all these nasty things on Twitter, and I feel like I use the report button more than I use the like button. Because, I mean, I've seen people attack wives of comic book writers that are no longer in DC or Marvel and then drag their kids into it. Come on, people. I mean, it's getting out of control. And speaking of the product, can we talk about, like, some of those issues? I mean, it's become too pricey. $6 for a comic? I can get a 400-page manga for, like, almost the same price. Okay? What is it, like 12 pages still in comics? This tells you how, like, out of it I've been with DC and Marvel. It's pricey. Some of the art sucks. I can't say this much about DC. I mean, they do have a few examples, but mostly Marvel there for a while was having really bad, like, Cal art type designs, and it looked like they hired an elementary school to draw them, and I was just like, this is horrible. Who are you trying to appeal to with this art? Because nobody wants to take chances. Nobody wants to stand out. They're afraid to draw a woman like a woman anymore because that could be offensive if they have boobs and hips. If they have long hair, that's like, holding her back because she's like men. I you know what I'm getting at. I'm sorry, I'm ranting now. And then, they dropped Diamond. I don't know the full story behind that. And then some of them switched over to companies like Random House, and you've heard the horror stories about the shipping with that to the comic book stores. And I feel like, what is it with them trying to target a specific audience that will not invest the money like somebody like myself, who I go and get like the back issues, even key issues that sometimes can cost some money. I get the hot toys. I buy the Marvel Legends, the McFarlane DC line stuff. I go see multiple viewings of the movies. I love these characters, but instead of targeting someone like me, we are trying to target Twitter. We're trying to target more female audience. Now look, yes, I'm a girl. I am. Okay? I'm not going to do the pronoun thing, so don't ask. I'm a woman, okay? But I know I'm in the minority. If I walked into a comic book store and I saw a lot more women than boys, I knew the manga section was probably bigger than the comic book section, okay? I knew there was never going to be a large amount of females in the comic book store. But I see them just, like, trying everything to take these franchises that have always been mostly male-oriented and trying to push them towards women, and there's very little who actually buy into it. The only thing I can say that they might be interested in, and I'm not being sexist because I'm a woman and I'm telling you my opinion from what my experience has been with these girls. They like the costumes because they're cute and they might dress up like them. Are they buying the comic book every month? Are they going to the store every Wednesday? No. Are they there on New Comic Book Day? Maybe if a boyfriend drags them. Okay? They are not buying up Captain Marvel. They are not really buying up Wonder Woman either. That's the harsh truth. They aren't. They might go, oh, that's like cute. And that's it. They might be buying like the stuffed toys, but they're not buying the Marvel Legends. They're not buying the DC Direct, the Multiverse DC toy line. They're not. Okay? Why are you trying so hard to demand that they buy your stuff? And truthfully, you're not really presenting them with anything that would be interesting in them. You know where they are? They're at manga. And let me tell you what the female characters look like in manga. They don't look like Captain Marvel. Okay, they wear cutesy outfits, they have long flowing hair, all right, they have a female form, they have makeup, they act very feminine, yet they can kick ass. So you don't even know how to target that audience. Then you're doing these ridiculous YA novels. Now, there might be a reason behind with Scholastic and all that crap, but the stuff you're coming up with, all I'll say is, my name is not Starfire. You've seen 100 videos on it. If you're watching my channel, I'm sure you've watched other channels where all they're doing is reviewing those stupid YA novels that nobody is buying. Too many stupid business decisions. Another thing is, I don't need all those variant covers. You can get J. Scott Campbell to do like 20 variants of your Spider-Man. But if the story sucks, you're lucky I buy one. Okay? I'm not just going to buy them for the covers. I know there's people out there who do that. Okay? I know. You're out there. You do it. No. I'd rather wait for the art piece on Sideshow that's not part of the comic book. And what is it like with your popular characters? Like, you release way too many issues for them. What was it? Batman recently has 25 issues of 25 different storylines going on for Batman. Who wants that? I mean, really, who wants that? Do you want that? I don't. There's too many interconnected stories. This is what I hear from a lot of manga fans on why they read more manga than comic books. Is because they don't want to be buying all up these different comic books, all these different characters that they might not be interested in, just to get the full storyline of one plot. They like the idea of a manga being a enclosed story that just focuses on that one character or characters and that one plot that leads into another arc and then eventually ends. You've got too much going on everywhere sometimes in DC and Marvel. Okay, like, does everybody have to have the Phoenix now in them? I really don't care about Echo and the Phoenix in her. The Phoenix is Jean Grey's thing. Why are we giving it to everybody? Why do I have to buy all these stories to get the whole damn plot? And yes, I know what some of you are going to say. What, they've always done that, Carrie. Well, yes, but they've done it well in the past. They don't do it well anymore. All right? They don't do it well anymore. I feel like there's like no long-term plan either. Like these abrupt changes they make. And I'm going to go back to Jonathan Kent and Tim Drake. Okay, guess what? They're now bisexual. Great, where do we go from here? We don't know. We didn't think it out that far. Iceman, like I said before, they made him gay and you rarely see him anymore. We're going to make an Asian Iron Fist. Let's see how long that lasts. Okay? We're going to try to make Falcon Captain America a thing. Oh, yeah, that didn't last. Then they tried to bring him back as Captain America, and people still were like, no, we're Steve. It's like they hate the legacy characters so much, they want to push in all these other characters, but then they don't have a game plan. There's like no development for new characters. I was mentioning this earlier when I was talking about Agents of Atlas with characters like Luna Snow. Like, look, original new character. Okay, who are their villains? What's their backstory? Well, she's a K-pop star. And how'd you get her powers? Well, she was on concert one time with her group and something imploded and gave her powers. Okay. And who's she been fighting? How did she get part... Like, why would Agents of Atlas bring her in? Like, oh, it's so frustrating. I feel like Marvel and DC just don't care anymore. So I'm at the point where I'm like, why should I care? Why should I care? If you don't care, why should I care? So I have moved on to reading manga, which has been very enjoyable, and it's a very welcoming community so far. I haven't had people in the manga community be very nasty or harsh like I'm getting with these new comic book fans. That's what I'm going to call them, even though I don't think they're fans. The indie comics community mostly has not been as problematic as some people like to paint it. Yeah, you're going to have an asshole here and there. I'm sorry, you are. But, you know, they want you to buy their comic. So they're not going to sit there and call you the N-word, World War II bad guy, or something heinous. They're actually going to listen to you. I did reviews, and some of them have come to me when I did a review where I was like, wasn't really impressed with the comic. But instead of saying stuff like, well, you don't know real talent when you see it and blah, blah, blah. Do you know how many years? I don't get that. I've actually gotten someone who was like, I appreciate your review. And yes, I agree with you about a lot of the things. And I will be working on it for the future. That makes me interested to see their next book. Even if I didn't have as much interest in their first book, the fact that they want to hear my input, the fact that they are trying to grow and try to create a product that they know fans will like, that's why I'm reading indie comics. The fact that the manga community is so welcoming and loves to just sit down and talk about their favorite characters and their favorite books. The fact that manga itself tries to focus on creating interesting characters and great storylines is why I read manga. The reason I go to back issues is because I want to remember a good time with DC and Marvel. I am not getting that anymore with DC and Marvel. And again, if you're enjoying it, fine, that's great. Good for you. I'm happy. I'm glad you're enjoying it. But this is the reasons why I have stopped reading Marvel and DC. Now, there have been a few here and there. There's some people I trust who do reviews that will point out when a comic's good, and then it will make me interested to see if it is. But it's very few and far between. It's like digging through a pile of crap just to find the diamond. Okay? I mean crap, because that's what it is. So I ask you, please don't take it personally if you don't like my opinion. We can have a discussion about it down below in the comment section. I mean, I know there's still some people out there who are holding out hope that this current regime in the Marvel and DC will one day fade away, and they'll bring in people who really care about the characters and create interesting stories again. And I hope you're right. I really do, because then I might come back. But as of right now, I don't think it's worth my time and money to review new comics or even read new comics, because what's happening sucks. I don't want to fight with people over stupid crap on Twitter. I get dragged into it, and yes, I sometimes I will react back. And after a while, I just have to laugh at it. Like, people are really trying to pick fights over this crap. People are blocking me that I've never talked to before in my life. I don't see it being worth it. I'd rather be in a community with people who enjoy what they're reading and I can have a discussion with. And right now for me, that's manga and indie comics. And again, if something changes with DC and Marvel, sure, I'll come back, because there's so many characters in DC and Marvel I love. But it's hard to read right now and see what they're doing to them, because I hate it. And some of the stuff they're doing, I don't know how they're going to ever fix it. Some of it just feels irreversible. Again, if you're enjoying it, that's good for you. Respect my opinion, I'll respect yours, and we can have a discussion about it down below in the comment section. But I really thought I wanted to get this off my chest and discuss why you don't hear me talk too much about new comics from DC and Marvel. Maybe this is not that important to you. That's fine. But tell me what you think. How are you feeling about the current state of Marvel and DC? Are you still reading it? If so, let me know what you're reading and tell me why. Is it good? Is it not? Are you finding other things to involve yourself in now that you've walked away from DC and Marvel? Tell me about that down below. Let's have a discussion. All right? No name calling, no threats, no accusations. Let's just have a discussion down below in my comment section. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you know when I have a new video up. And I will see you on the next one. Bye.